Hi. Because we're currently in the timeline of the series' 20th anniversary, I took the time and put together this review more or less my own personal theories of the future beyond Breaking Dawn. So, as you all know, Breaking Dawn here left us on a cliffhanger with speculations, theories. We meet a lot of new vampires, including Noel and his aunt Hulin, after they testify in Breaking Dawn. So, okay. Let's begin. The Volturi Academy theory. I put together some notes, so I'll be reading my handwriting, mostly in the video. So, okay. Imagine Arrow realizes that the only way to beat the Collins and the Wolves is to recruit the next generation. He turns Voltura into an elite institution that looks like a prestigious university but functions like a prison. The curriculum. The hybrids study genetic potential and gift mastery. Jane is the dean of discipline, using pain to enforce rules, and Alec handles sensory deprivation training. The grade school section is where the Volturi monitor young hybrids like a kidnapped Nessie to see which gifts manifest. The high school is where those are weaponized for the Volturi Guard. Okay, personally, that academy would be like really, really scary, but intriguing, you know? I mean, the world of Twilight is full of possibilities, right? So, yeah, it would be really interesting. Okay, moving forward. Jacob Black, the tutor. Since Jacob is wherever Renesmee is, he wouldn't let her go to this school alone. He would infiltrate the institution, perhaps posing as a security consultant or a physical education instructor, just to stay near her. The anti-homework. While the Volturi try to teach Renesmee that she is a godlike being, superior to humans. Jacob's homework for her would be about humanity. His assignments would focus on... Okay, I don't know if you know, but in Breaking Dawn, after Jacob imprints on Renesmee, he makes like this hunting competition between them so she can get used to the hunting sport for animal blood. And they make it like a game, who can catch the biggest prey in the most time. Sort of like a fun, to get her away from biting him, I guess. But yeah. So, remembering the fun interactions on their hunting trips. And of course, the smell of the Koyu woods and the feeling of a heartbeat. Most important, since Renesmee is half human. So I guess what he's trying to do here is get her grounded more in the human world and less in the supernatural vampire universe. Because the human side is really important, since Jacob felt in the first 3 novels, he felt that the Cullens kind of robbed him of his human life. So even though he doesn't hold resentment towards them now, he had a hard time accepting them in the beginning of the original books, starting from New Moon to Eclipse and part of Breaking Dawn. So now, because of the imprint, he doesn't seem to hold resentment anymore, because of the imprinting bond on Renesmee Cullen. Okay. Moving along. The Alpha Guard Study Hall. Jacob will use his Alpha Guard mental shield to create a so-called private classroom for her in the middle of a crowded Volturi hall. He would project his thoughts to her that the Volturi teachers like Otto, Dimitri, Felix, Marcus couldn't read her, teaching her. So those teachers couldn't read her thoughts, basically. In other words, teaching her how to resist their manipulations. More specifically, Otto, since he has the ability to read every thought with a single touch. Okay? So, Volturi's homework. In a school run by vampires, the assignment would be terrifying. I put together a schedule beginning with ethics class. In this class, they would argue why the secret of our existence sorry about that. They would argue why the existence ethics class argue why the secret of our existence justifies the harvesting of a small village. Next period, science lab. Renesmee would be forced to study her own blood under a microscope to find ways to make it more effective for the guard. Jacob's intervention. Jacob would sabotage her homework. For example, if she has to write an essay on the weakness of mortality, he would sneak her books by Shakespeare or Austen to show her the strength of the human spirit. Okay, I'm going to stop there for a minute. But if you've read Breaking Dawn, you'll know. And if you haven't, I'll explain here. But Stephenie describes Jacob after he's imprinted, I guess, on the first meeting between him and Bella after he's imprinted. Stephenie specifically describes Jacob as a kindred spirit, which I find is very, it's a nice thought of how to describe the growth and change of Jacob, going from a wolf who broke away from his pack, going into his alpha destiny period, imprinting mechanism, phenomenon, whatever you want to call it. I think that's a very sweet, thoughtful way to sum up in a nice way, a character who's gone through so much pain within the previous books, with Bella and the whole not being able to get the girl scenario, situation, the whole mess of it all, right, with the vampires and Bella's love for Edward. It's just a whole mix-up. Okay. So, the following, moving ahead now, the Felix connection. Felix would be a disgruntled janitor or the head of security at the school. He sees the kids being treated like lab rats. His world of possibilities starts when he sees Jacob, a wolf protecting a hybrid student, more fiercely than the Volturi ever could. I think there is a reason why Jacob imprinted on Renesmee, and I don't necessarily think it's a one-track situation for reproduction. I think there are multiple other reasons why causing the imprint on her specifically. It is not just about sex. If that were the case, that would be pretty boring, wouldn't you say? Yeah. I don't think a wolf would intentionally go after someone only for sex, I don't think that Stephenie would write something pertaining only to reproduction, right? Even though that's obviously gonna happen eventually between them, and that's the program, and that's the way it has to be, and that's fine. Okay, so, and I personally don't have a problem with imprinting. I know some people have mixed feelings about it, and I don't really feel sorry for Jacob. It's the way Breaking Dawn was written in the first place, and I'm really satisfied to how Breaking Dawn ended, in my opinion. I don't believe in following rules in regards to writing, especially fantasy. Like, I know with my own writing, I don't follow any realistic rules. If I were Stephenie Meyer and I thought of it, I would probably go down the same route and not really care what other people thought, So I'm pretty happy with the way Jacob ended up at the end of Breaking Dawn, imprinting on Renesmee, Edward and Bella's daughter. So that was a satisfying ending. Anyway, let's move on. So, the turning point. Felix might look the other way when Jacob sneaks Renesmee out of the dormitory for a field trip to the Italian countryside. So let's say Jacob and Renesmee move to Italy for a timeline for her to study with the Volturi, and let's say they rent a place and they live there and they only come home to Forks on certain occasions, So Jacob is primarily Renesmee's caregiver, as we briefly saw in Breaking Dawn. Rosalie and Jacob are mainly her caregivers, since Breaking Dawn solely centers around Bella Swan Collins' story. It doesn't really go into the details of Renesmee, since Stephenie Meyer was fully focused on Bella here. So and Stephenie Meyer did mention that Felix, in her universe, her mind, has a world of possibilities, And I think Felix is a very quiet, mysterious character to explore more. So I do agree with her. In the books, the originals, Felix doesn't really talk, except for the scene in Eclipse where he doubts the Volturi's effectiveness, and Jane doesn't really like that, so she uses her power of pain to get him to shut up and not go his own way. But I do see some sort of drift between him and the Volturi eventually, especially if he thinks that. From Eclipse. And to be honest, in Eclipse, I don't think, since Alice couldn't really see who was behind the newborn army, I think Jane was behind it. She's sort of Aro's right hand, in my opinion. So she could make the rules, and Alec could be like this hidden shadow, preventing anyone from seeing Jane's ability to make decisions. I don't know, it's just a thought, but anyways. So let's move on to the Q&A segment. Okay. First question. If the Volturi actually opened an academy for gifted hybrids or new vampires, who do you think would be the strictest professor besides Jane? So, I feel like Caius would be giving out failing grades just for breathing too loud. Okay, that was sort of a joke, but another strict professor, I think, is another fair option would be Aro. Aro has the ability, or has the ruthless ability to commit murder, as he did with his sister Didamai. Marcus's significant other, wife. Dynamai and Marcus plan to leave. If you don't know, they plan to leave the Volturi together, start a new life. And Aro, in his quest for power and his hunger for power, made the ruthless decision to kill Dynamai. Staged it like an accident or something. Like the books and the movies don't go into that. But he staged it like an accident, let's say. And he even grieved his own sister's death to prevent Marcus from leaving the Volturi. That's the length he would go to just for the upper hand in power and controlling the vampire throne. I view the Volturi as a government, sort of like a mafia, but more so a government of royalty, like the monarchy, you would say, like the English monarchy you have in the real world, right? So, yeah. Question 2 is, can we talk about Jacob being a tutor? Do you think he'd actually have the patience for it? Or would he just end up taking the students on field trips to the Push Beach every day? The follow-up. How do you think Edward feels about Jacob teaching at a school run by the Volturi? So let me read that again, because Siri interrupted me. The follow-up question was, how do you think Edward feels about Jacob teaching at a school run by the Volturi? Question 3. Felix. Do you see him as a mentor figure in the academy? Or is he still strictly the enforcer? Now, Stephenie Meyer has mentioned that he does have potential, and she feels like he's one of the driving characters she would love to explore in the sequels. But he's not the main character. Like, it would be centered around Renesmee's perspective alongside Jacob. So there's a lot of side characters that really enforce her writing, and I sort of agree with that. So I feel like there's more to him, Felix, than what we saw in the original books. The follow-up, who else from the Volturi Guard do you think would secretly be a cool teacher? Oops. Sorry, but I forgot a follow-up question tied in with question 1. What class do you think would be the most dangerous to attend? Sorry about that. My notes are kind of all over the place. So sorry about that. Okay, but let's move ahead. So drop a red apple if you'd enroll in the Volturi Academy, or drop a wolf if you're staying with the Quileute shapeshifter wolf pack. So, and tell me why you would enroll in the Volturi Academy. What intrigued you to attend that educational institution? I would love to hear your thoughts. So, okay. One of the reasons why I do these reviews on specifically the Twilight series and Stephenie Meyer's material is because I just enjoy them, and I want to get people passionate on what I like, and it's a good story and it should be advertised. So I think if it wasn't for Stephenie Meyer, I wouldn't be doing this. So that's thank you, Stephenie. Anyways, so I love exploring what could potentially happen after Breaking Dawn. After the happily ever after. It feels like the world just gets bigger, I find. It gets more intriguing and more interesting to come up with different scenarios. And to be honest, Breaking Dawn, in my opinion, is just incomplete without those follow-up sequels. So whether that's 2, as Stephenie Meyer pointed out, but isn't sure, or more, I personally would love to have them continued in a full-length book series. But if we don't get that, and we only read the outlines, that's okay too. We will still eventually buy it either way. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the long-awaited wait, and that quote, that new fresh quote on Stephenie's website, I think I'm gonna be wherever I'm gonna be wherever you are. You'll get used to it. That personally to me sounds like Jacob. Like it gives Jacob vibes, and the imprinting. So it's worth the midnight sun wait. I mean, we're still waiting after 20 years, so we're dedicated fans. So take your time, Stephenie. No pressure. So thank you for listening to my review, and I will put the questions in the description so you don't have to replay the video in case you missed it. I go through as many comments as I can, and I hope to make a part 2. I have a few other theories that could happen regarding this. So I will do a part 2 very soon. And Have a good night. See you in the next video. Bye for now.